Here we go again. Hey, everybody. Here we are yet again. You thought we'd quit. We don't quit. We're never quitters. Quitters never win.
No.
Winners never prosper. And one day we will prosper. And we're back with Dan. We're back with Corey. And we're back with another dad. We're going to continue our series of fatherly interviews. We're talking to Shiloh Hudson today. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Shiloh. I'm coming in this blind, so I know very little about you. Almost not much more than the fans. What fans? The listeners.
So, well, I'll tell you what. I'm 45. According to my wife, I'm very happily married. I've got 3 children. I've been around quite a while. I've done everything from playing semi-pro football to sitting in the back of the helicopter getting paid to kill rattlesnakes. I've done everything I've ever wanted to do. At 28 years old, graduated high school thanks to the birth of my son. That I figured I should do something with my life. Kind of changed everything. And so I pride myself on teaching my kids to be better adults than I ever was. My oldest is 17. I've got one daughter she is my princess. She is almost 15, and I have an 8-year-old who will be 9 at the end of July, and he is he's my oops baby, but I wouldn't change anything in the world for him, man. The kid is awesome. I have coached high school football. I was going towards a teaching degree, and then COVID happened and kind of put the kibosh on that. But I own a security company. I own an antique company. Like I said, man, if you can think of something stupid, I've probably done it.
Well, then we should have at least a little bit to talk about. You've got 3 kids, 17, 15, 18. So was that you say that one was an oops baby, but did you ever have a planned number? Were you ever like, it's just going to be this and nothing more?
No, man, I thought, and it was 17, almost 15 and 8, not 18. So when I had my first one, I was 28 years old. And I say first one, and the running joke is it's the first one that I know of. There may be more, but I couldn't swear to it. I've never had anybody knock on my door, and it's going to be 18 next year, so I figure I got one more year to worry about. After that, I'm good. And when we found out my girlfriend at the time was pregnant, I was surprised. I didn't think I could have kids. Never really thought about the protection angle, never really thought about pregnancy, didn't really care. I figured I would take care of whatever came forward, and that was going to be it. So when he came along, it was like, man, that's awesome. I got one. I don't need any more. Then after my wife and I, we got married, we thought we'd try for one more and had a girl. And now my house is set. There's 2 adults, there's 2 children. We're perfectly matched. Fast forward a few years and I'm bored with life. And I figured, let's have another one. And my wife says, absolutely not. And for some reason, either I talked her into it or neither one of us were paying attention, and we ended up with a third. And it's been, we're outnumbered. Now there's more kids than adults, but life's good. Life's really, really good. I love everything about it. So to answer your question, there wasn't a plan. It just happened.
Well, we actually did plan it. So I'm always a little bit curious, what other couples have done or gone through. We didn't have any desire to even have kids until well into our relationship together, right before we got married, actually. So it was just one of those things where one day we were like, hey, let's do it. And then we started, and I guess it was like a month later she conceived. But anyway, I'm getting away from the where we were talking about. So I actually made a joke the other day on a YouTube clip, reel or video, or I don't know what it was, saying how if you have 3 kids, then I'm pretty sure that the rumor is if you have 3 kids, then you have superpowers. So if that rumor were to be true, let's not say yes or no, but if that rumor were to be true, what superpower would you have?
Mine would be the ability to be patient. Until I had three, I thought I was patient. I was very wrong. The third child is like the Tasmanian devil. That kid has a million miles an hour setting, and that's it. And so my superpower would be patience, and my wife's superpower would be tolerance because she can put up with all my crap every single day. She will tell you that, if you ask her, she tells everybody she has four children, and the oldest one costs the most money and gives her the most gray hair. And that happens to be me when you ask. But yeah, I mean, I think you're right. I think, you know, when you have two children or one child, and you've got two parents in the house, it's evenly matched. There's an adult to handle every situation. When that third one or fourth one or fifth one comes along, you're kind of you're outnumbered, and now it takes teamwork to get anything done. Luckily, my wife is she really is a rock star. She's allowed me to fulfill a lot of my goals just by being her. And because of that, our kids see the dynamic. We work very, very well together. But for me, it's patience. I've got to shut my mouth and just listen. And hers is tolerance because she has to let me be spontaneous and come up with stupid stuff. Otherwise, we'll both go crazy. And so I think you're right. I think with three comes the superpower, and that superpower's got to be teamwork. And we have to be the Wonder Twins, or it will fail.
I was just about to say. So when you like combined, you're the Wonder Twins.
Yeah, yeah.
So I've got a couple more that occurred to me throughout this, but I don't want to hog everything. Do you have any pertinent questions, Dan?
Yeah. When you said when you had your first, you didn't really plan for it. Did you guys were you even trying, or did it just kind of spontaneously happen?
So,
so to speak.
My wife and I had went through a real bad breakup, and this was in August of 2004, and I was bored, and I said, you know what, I'm gonna throw a party. I'm gonna invite a bunch of girls, a couple of guys. We're gonna have a party. It was the Chiefs opening home weekend. We're gonna watch football. We'll see what happens, right? So throughout the night, I talked to different girls, and I got slightly intoxicated, and I was doing card tricks. True story. My wife. The only reason why we ever went out for our first date is because she lost a bet. But you should never bet against the magician anyway.
Right.
So yeah, so she lost a bet. The next night we went out. That was September 12th of 2004. She was pregnant by May, and we've been together ever since.
Wow.
There was never any looking back. We moved in together. We started dating in September. We moved in together Halloween, so a month later. And hell, I didn't even know who her parents were. And her dad, when we found out she was pregnant, she went to go tell her dad. She was going to call him, and I said, "No, you don't tell a guy you're pregnant over the phone, right? Let's go out there."
Right.
And he's a rancher. He lives south of town. He's got mules and dogs and 65 acres of land. So we go out there and we're standing outside of his truck, and he goes, she goes, Dad, I'm pregnant. And he goes, oh, congrats. And he's staring at me the whole time. And he goes, oh, congrats. He gives her a hug, and she goes, well, I really have to pee. So she goes inside and leaves me standing outside with him. And he goes,
oh man,
he goes, so are you going to marry her? And I said, dude, I have no clue. So I'm 28 years old. I'm a grown man. I don't know what I'm going to do yet. And he goes, well, you should marry her. And I went, yeah, probably, but I'll figure that out as we go along. Nobody's going to tell me what to do. And he goes, you're not scared of me at all, are you? It's not a fucking bit. And I'll tell you, me and that guy, we have been absolute best friends ever since. I think it was kind of one of those things that he wanted somebody who was going to take care of his daughter no matter what came up.
Yeah.
It wasn't even about his grandkids. It wasn't about anything. It was just about he wanted a man who was going to be a man and was going to fight any battle that was right. He never came at me cross. It was just that I imagine I will have the same conversation someday with whoever my daughter brings home. And I imagine that conversation will probably go really, really similar. But man, I was afraid that him and I were, we were going to butt heads forever. Oh, we care about the bad in-laws, but I love my in-laws. Do we see eye to eye on everything? No, but they allow me to run my house with very little intervention from them. But they're there. They know they can come over and drink a beer on the back porch. We can. My mother-in-law comes to all my kids' games. I mean, dude, I'm so blessed to be in this situation. I should be dead or in prison, or I should be on my 9th divorce, and yet this woman puts up with me and allows me to be the numbskull and the knuckle dragger, and we're still here, and it's going on 19 years, man. It's phenomenal.
Wow, awesome.
That's awesome. To my knowledge, that makes you the only successful rebound relationship ever.
Oh no! There are so many worse things I could say about that. There's so many jokes that write themselves. Some of them are very off color and bad humor, so I won't really get into too much of them. But my wife had dated several people, and I had dated several people from all across the spectrum of races and religions and backgrounds, and yet she's here and I'm here, and our kids are loved and taken care of. And I'm honestly, right before I got on here, I was kind of on cloud 9 because my oldest son went to football camp today, and I've coached him from first grade, right, all the way till now. The kid is just he's awesome. But he got his first letter. He got his first recruiting letter, and it's not in football. And I'm lost because it's in freaking pole vaulting. I didn't even know pole vaulting gave scholarships. I thought it was something you watched on TV when you were bored. No, this kid's got a pole vaulting scholarship coming. And I have to pretend to be excited. I am excited, but I got to pretend to know what the hell it is because I have no clue. But he's good at it apparently, and I'm just going to have to stop wearing football jerseys and find out whatever they wear for pole vaulting.
That's Olympic type stuff right there.
Yeah,
so that's a big
and
time.
He picked it up. He picked it up freshman year because he was bored. He had done wrestling. He had broke his ankle the very first wrestling meet his freshman year, so he didn't get to compete very much. He came back right before state, so he got to compete at the end of the year tournament. But he went undefeated on the year. I mean, but you break your ankle and you don't get to compete any more than you win your last one. Doesn't really count. But we go to every football game, and I'm always, you got to be better. You got to be better. You got to be better. So he wanted to do something that I had no idea what the hell I was doing, so I couldn't coach him anymore. And he has taught me about it. We watch YouTube videos. He criticizes what other people are doing. He's broken down the fundamentals of the sport, and he's taught me something new. Again, like I said, my superpower is to shut up and let him talk. It's not just my wife. I got to let them all do it. And he's worth every gray hair I have is worth it with these guys.
Cool. What else you got, Dan?
I was going to ask about the football thing. You said you sent me a little blurb about yourself, and it said that you coached and played from basically Pee-wee to up to semi-pro. Did you ever play semi-pro, or you just coach it?
No, I played for several years. I played for some teams in Topeka. I played for the Kansas Coyotes. I played for a team in Kansas City for a while. I played for a team in Springfield for a while, St. Joe. So I traveled for a while. And then I thought, I was 32 at the time, and I said, I think I'm done playing. And so me and a friend of mine, we started a team, and we did it for a couple of years, and I got burned out. So I went back to coaching youth. And then I had a friend say, I have a guy I want you to meet. And this guy's name was Jeremy Thomas, and he has his background is just as off color as mine. The guy is awesome. He's absolutely one of my best friends now. But I said, I don't want to coach adults, man. I'd much rather coach kids. But I met with him, and I drank a beer, and 3 hours later, I was drawing up another playbook. And him and I started a team, Kansas Sentinels, and we did that for 4 years. And at the age of 40, retired from that. We shut the team down. We kind of went our own way for a while. So at 40 years old, I was in fairly good shape. My youngest child had never seen me play. And so I contacted a coach in Leavenworth. It was the First City Cavalry semi-pro team. I contacted that coach and said, I coached against you for a while. My team has kicked crap out of your team for years. I'd love to come play just one more year. I ended up playing two. And so my youngest child got to sit in the stands and watch me play. At 40 years old, I made it to the All-Star game. And at that point, I said, okay, I've accomplished what I set out to do. I'm done.
Nice.
And I coached high school ball for a couple of years. And this is actually my first year of not coaching. Like I have more time. I have no idea what I'm doing with myself right now. No clue. Yeah, it's so bizarre. I'm able to watch my kids do their stuff. It's kind of
Awesome.
Well, I guess I'll take over for a little bit. I've definitely developed quite a few questions while you've been talking. I don't know that we'll get to all of them. My ADD wants me to, or my obsessive compulsive disorder, rather wants me to do these kind of in the order that they came to me. So we will take a couple steps back. You're basically a jack of all trades as far as careers. And I was wondering which of those stands out to you as being your favorite. Nothing too complicated. I'm just curious. Obviously, you moved on from one to the next for one reason or another. But which of those, was your favorite place to work?
I loved at every job I've ever done, and this is kind of a BS answer. It's a CYA answer, but I'm gonna give it to you anyway because it's the truth. At every job I have ever worked, I have learned something that made me better for the next job. At one point in time, I was with Subway for almost 15 years. I had started out as an assistant manager. A month later, was running a store. Ended up running 6 different stores over a few years, and new owners bought the franchise I was with, and they made me an operations manager. So now I'm running 15 stores. At the time, I still had no high school diploma. I didn't have a college degree. I wasn't any smarter than anybody else. I was just going to outwork everybody. And so that taught me a lot about the business aspect of things, which just made me want to go do something else for myself. The job that I absolutely will always love is working for myself. I started a security company about 15 years ago with some buddies of mine. We had been bouncing at bars, big guys, football players. We're going to bounce, right? Bouncing at strip clubs. That's the best job in the world. Till you get carpal tunnel. But it was fun that we were able to get out, and we started working with different promoters and managers. And one of the promoters I work with quite a bit is Dude's Alley Productions. The guy I've worked stage security for different venues, but I've met over the last 15 months Tech Nine, Chris Calico, Haystack, um, uh, Yuck Mouth. I mean, some of these guys, we've done security for the expo where they had Jeff Dunham come through. I mean, some of these guys I've never even heard of until I get a phone call. I don't advertise anywhere. This year I finally started a Facebook page because I was told I had to, but I've never advertised. It's always been word of mouth. People call me, and if you don't have my number, that means that you don't need to hire me. Hire somebody else. I've got 25 of my best friends that work with me. They don't work for me; they work with me. We all kind of we take a contract on. We all split the pay evenly. Nobody makes any more than anybody else. I'll do all the work on the backside so that we all get paid on the front side. But we do festivals and we do concerts and we do parties. I mean, we have so much fun. But just being able to work for myself, not having to punch in the clock, not having to worry about doing things to anybody else's standards. I set my own tone, and it's worked out for me. But I couldn't have done any of that. I would never be successful at anything if it wasn't for people along the way giving me an opportunity to teach me something. Whether it was the business operations manager with Subway, or selling used cars, or working for Veritech Oil recording, laying cable in the desert. Whatever. I mean, somebody has taught me something along the way. Just to I'll do when somebody take a chance on me, and so I'm always willing to help out. Like as soon as I heard about the podcast with you guys, whatever I can do to help. I've got people. I have a guy coming over next week. He started his own photography studio. Guy is absolutely phenomenal behind a camera. Has no idea how to run a business. I can help with that. I can just teach you. And I do business and personal accounting throughout the year. I do bookkeeping for a couple of clients. But I've told them that, I will teach you everything about the LLC game, but I will not be your first accountant. Couple steaks, I'll spend 5 hours teaching you everything you want to know. But you're not going to pay me and you're not going to hire me until you go meet with other accountants first. And if you want to hire me, great. But I don't want to be the first guy because I want you to see what else is out there. And if somebody else can do it right at a better price, then do it. But let me teach you enough so you don't get screwed. And that's I do that for everybody. I teach high school seniors how to do their taxes. I'll do it for free. As long as you give me 30 minutes of your time, I can teach you what taxes look like. Because nobody ever taught me any of that. I had to learn it the hard way.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's sadly, that's the way with a lot of us. No one was there to, to teach us before it became a problem.
Right.
As I said, I'm just going to take these in the order I came. So we jump ahead from there or backwards, however you want to put it, to children.
Mm-hmm.
And I've got a buddy that he doesn't post a lot on Facebook, but when he does post, it's all about how he's introduced his child to his daughter to something new that he had loved from his childhood, whether it was a cartoon or a movie, music, what have you. And 100% of the time, she's just, I don't have time for that, Dad. That's lame. I don't love it. And I was beginning to think that was the case with every child. That being said, I spoke to a gentleman on the podcast a little while ago, and he said that his 3 kids pretty much all like the same thing he does. Just got lucky that way. I was wondering what it was like in your house.
So I truly believe your kids will teach you just as much as you teach them if you let them. So, each of my kids have their own personality. If you ask my oldest son, what's your number one job in life? From birth, he's been taught to be a better man than my dad. So he'll tell you that. Any stranger on the street, ask him that. That's his first answer. My youngest son, I really think he's either going to be a serial killer or he's going to rule the world. I mean, he is Stewie from Family Guy. So we take it piece by piece. Like my youngest son, him and I can watch Thundercats, right? From the 80s. We can watch Thundercats and have no problem at all. He loves Thundercats. My oldest son will sit and watch Killer Clowns from Outer Space. That movie's 30 years old. But I have to watch Breaking Bad with him, or I have to watch, South Park, or it's kind of a give and take. And what I think is cool, if there's something that I'm passionate about, if I take the time to explain it to my kids and they're not passionate about it, no problem. But they're going to listen to me and give me the chance to gush about something because they know when they bring home that next project, I'm going to let them gush to me. And I'm going to ask questions and I'm going to be involved because they're going to be involved. There's never a time that my kids have ever shut me down, from the oldest one who's almost 18 to the youngest one who's almost 9. They never shut me down. They never shut my wife down. Now, they might say, I'm too busy right now. Can we come back to this? Cool. Tell me when, right? I want to know when we can talk about it because I'm passionate right now, but the squirrels in my head, I may not be passionate tomorrow. So when do we want to talk about this? And they do the same thing, whether it's artwork or reading books or watching TV, or my daughter, she's not the most artistic person in the world when it comes to drawing or things like that, but she can tell you a story. She can write it out and make you visualize it in your head. But she's really into diamond dots, which is another form of art. My youngest son, nobody knew it until last week. He can draw. He sat and drew Puss in Boots. I actually shared it on Facebook last week. I was stoked because I had no idea where it came from. He's almost 9. I didn't know he could draw. He didn't know he could draw. It's just kind of cool. But to answer your question, in my house, it kind of works. It's a mixture of the two, you know. If I rush you and tell you you have to enjoy it because I do, I'm going to shut you down pretty quickly. I feel like if my kids come to me and they're forcing something on me, I'm not going to be into it either. But if they come and they just start talking about how passionate they are about something, it makes me want to pay attention. If I can describe to you something and you feel the passion I have for it, you kind of want to know why I'm passionate about it. Whether you like it or not doesn't matter. You want to know what just made that tick for you. And if I can let you feel that same tick, then you know how to relate your ticks to me. You know, does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's just kind of. I'm glad I had kids when I did because when I was younger, I don't hide anything from my children. My children know the truth. I was incarcerated for a while. I was a real turd growing up. Had a very very horrible home life. Bounced house to house. I was faced abuse in different houses. Hell, I was fighting from the time I was 7. I mean, it was what it was. Um, and so, you know, when I got older, I had just gotten out of jail when I met my soon to be wife, right? And had been on this career path with Subway that I wasn't really sure where it was going to go, and everything just kind of clicked for me. The day my son was born was the first time in my life I'd ever cried, right? Cried and I prayed to God. I said, God, please don't let this kid grow up like me. Um, and that was the beginning of everything. Everything changed for me. I had to find something I was passionate about that was positive, and it just have to be that kid. And all my kids are like that. I you know, as a parent, the caged responses, you know, would you die for your kids? Absolutely, absolutely. You know what? But will you live for your kids? And that just changed everything for me. It had to. I could have been a young thug in and out of the jail all the time. I could have kept drinking. I could have kept doing some of the recreational narcotics I was doing. Um, or I could throw all of that crap away and just live for my family. And I wouldn't change any of it.
Right on. I do have a quick question back about the about what the his it actually piggybacks off of his when you said you kind of exposed your kids to stuff that you liked and they kind of picked and chose what they wanted. Did you do that with football too with your son, or did he come to you one day and be like, "Daddy, I really want to play football like you"? Or obviously that was probably your influence, but is that something you that he came to you with, or that you kind of said, "Hey, what do you think about this?"
You know, my wife was very scared that I was going to force him into it. Um, and I felt if I did that, I was going to do the same mistake to my dad. And so I exposed him to it. I showed him what it was. We watched it every weekend. But if he wanted to go play video games with his friends and not watch the game, go ahead. But over time, by the time he was getting into the second grade, he's like, "And I want to play football with my friends." Cool, let's go. And then the coaches of the teams that were around here, they weren't fundamental coaches. They were, here's the playbook, let's do this, but they didn't explain the why behind any of it. And for me, even as a kid growing up, I wanted to know why I was doing this move at this time so that I could get the muscle memory to react faster for myself. And so that's what I did with them. Is I took this first and second grade team, which is really kind of like herding cats, and got them to let's just work on 5 plays. But before we ever open up a playbook, let's go back to what a fundamental stance is. What's a 3-point? What's a 2-point? What's the edge? What are the positions? What are the gaps? All of that. What's an eye technique? What's a 2-tech? We went through all of that. And I had second grade kids that could talk football with adults because they knew the fundamentals. Now they couldn't play call, they couldn't recognize a play, but they could show you what a 3-point stance was supposed to look like versus a 4-point stance and when you're supposed to switch between the two on the defensive line. When you got a second grader who could explain that to you, he's going to do something with his life as far as sports go. And that, again, pole vaulting, it's not football. Now he's a varsity player this year, but if he wants to do this, it's my job to let it. I could have told him, we have to do every football camp. We have to do, and don't get me wrong, I was pissed last summer because he paid to do a pole vaulting camp, which was on the same day as the first day of varsity camp, right? So I was livid. But that's what he wanted to do. He paid for it with his own money. He made up for it the next day at camp. I could be mad, but it's worked out for him. So if you're going to put the time in, whatever it is, I don't care. All three of my, well, no, I take it back. My boys both know how to play chess. They did chess club, right? When your 8-year-old comes home from chess club and wants to play chess with you, you're going to beat him. But if he knows what the pieces are called and how they're supposed to move, beat him slowly, right? You don't beat an 8-year-old in 3 plays. But if you can beat him in 20 moves, he feels like he has accomplished something. And plus, you get to talk with your kid, right? I've learned more over a chessboard with my kids. I don't even like chess, but I've learned more playing chess with them than I ever did watching TV, right? I learned more at football games. I learned which kids are doing drugs. I learned which kids are dating who. I learned which girls are having sex before school and after school. I've learned that stuff from my kids, and I'm not drilling them, and I'm not asking questions, look for answers. I can have a conversation, and they're sidetracked by all the other stuff going on that they don't realize how much information they're giving you if you will just shut up and let them talk. Again, that's my superpower, patience. Just shut up and let them do it. They will be successful if you get out of their way. So far, it's worked out.
Really good content. You're like you say things that are almost common sense in a way, but I'm just like, why didn't I think of that?
Well, my dad always told me common sense ain't that common. I think George Carlin said it too. George Carlin said that the average person in the world is stupid. And to get that average number, half of them had to be more stupid than that, right? I was that stupid guy for most of my life. My wife allowed me to kind of grow up. She didn't force anything on me. She just allowed me to realize that I was making mistakes. And then when my son was born, those mistakes couldn't be made anymore. Otherwise, I was going to drag him down. So rather than me drag him down, I let my wife and my kid pull me up. I wouldn't change anything. I say it all the time, man. I've said it like 40 times a day. I wouldn't change anything. I'm so lucky. I'm so blessed with my life. I'm not the richest guy. We live in a great house. We live in a great neighborhood. All my bills are paid. We're able to travel. We're able to do dumb stuff. But I didn't buy my son his first car. His grandma gave it to him, but in order to get it, we flew down to Arizona and drove it back. I could have had it towed. I could have had it shipped. No, you're going to spend 19 hours in the car with me. Let's go. It's just a road trip we had to take, right? My wife and my daughter last year for Mother's Day, I flew them to Phoenix for Mother's Day. We could have all went, but I wanted them to go. We're not the Brady Bunch. We do dumb stuff still. I mean, we get into arguments. We have our moments where we have to shut up and take a time out from each other. Everybody in this house has the same right. We all have a 10-minute rule, right? My wife actually came up with this while we were still dating. We have a 10-minute rule. If you're getting pissed off about something, you can take 10 minutes. And all you have to do at any point in time is say, I need my 10. And everybody else has to shut up and leave you alone for at least 10 minutes. And during that time, everybody kind of gets to figure out is this conversation even worth having? After 10 minutes, you come back to it. And if you have to pick it back up, now we can, but nobody's pissed off anymore. And a lot of times when we come back together, it's, you know what? I think we've all said what we have to say. There's nothing else to say. We kind of solve our own problems by just shut up and get out of the way. Take your time. And that's worked for us. I mean, it may not work for everybody, but for us, being able to say whatever you want to say at any point in time and then shut up and get out of the way works. It works for us. We all have our own space. We can all get out of each other's way. And then that way you don't ever have anybody getting the last word, because there is no last word. You've dropped the conversation. If we need to pick it back up, we can. But let's calm the hell down and just figure out what's going to happen.
Cool. I actually wrote down to remember that, because that's a good rule to employ with whatever size family you might have. 1 child, 3 children, doesn't really matter.
Yeah. You get 10 minutes, your entire attitude can change. No matter how mad you are, if you take 10 minutes of silence, you will drop your aggression. It's almost a psychological rule. Uh, Bipolar people, ADHD people, normal people, if you take 10 minutes separating from the problem is no longer as big as it was. The problem didn't go away, but now you can address it differently. You take that 10 minutes of isolation away from whatever has already pissed you off, your aggression level will drop. It just works, man. It really does. I was 28 when I figured that out. If I'd learned that when I was 12, I'd have never gotten in trouble in the first place.
I'm debating whether to leave that in for the episode or to cut that out for a reel, because that's real. Like all of the reels always get more views than the episodes get listened. So more people would get that information if I put it out there like that.
Yeah.
Before I jump back in here, Dan, did you have anything else that you were thinking about right now, ruminating on?
Yeah, this one thing, and he's like I said, you sent me that little blurb about yourself. I consider coaching at least like Pee Wee and high school football like part of being involved in your community. You said that you were involved in your community. Is that it, or is there more that you do?
No, there's a lot more. We volunteer a lot. Um, uh, Not as much as we used to, but at one point in time, even with like my youth team, we would go to the Salvation Army and feed the homeless on Thanksgiving Day. We stay involved with the church. We volunteer to help out, even neighbors. Which my oldest son wants to be a youth pastor, so that means most of my sleazy jokes I cannot tell at home. But even like Labor Day, we're out at the store. I'm trying to get some stuff and go, right? I have a place to be. I don't want to be here anyway. I hate Walmart, but we got to grab some supplies and we got to go. So I go through the line and I'm walking out the door. My oldest son isn't there anymore. I turn around and he's behind me helping some guy scan it. He was in a wheelchair, and my son is helping him scan the groceries and putting them in bags for him. And I'm like, we got to go. But at the same time, this is pretty awesome. I've raised a good human being, right?
Yeah.
Even better than me. Again, that's his job. But it was just kind of cool to see. And we help. We were going to foster. We backed away from fostering, but we still do a lot of clubs. We still do a lot of events with neighborhood kids and single parent families. Kids are always welcome in my house. Always. Like I'll hang up the projector screen outside, and we'll do a drive-in movie in the backyard. I don't care. Everybody is welcome here until you're not, right? And so we do. Christmas Eve is always a big one. For me, a lot of our friends, they're split families or single parent families, and so they'll bring their kids over here, and they will go finish wrapping presents or doing whatever they have to do, and then they'll come back with their kids. And when they come here, everybody brings a present for their kid, right? Everybody gets a box to open. It's got a pair of pajamas. It's got a pack of hot cocoa and a bag of popcorn, and they play games and they watch movies, and that gives us all a couple of hours to digress. And then the old guy is going to sit in a chair and read The Night Before Christmas and send everybody home at 11 o'clock. That's always open. So, we've had our kids invite friends of theirs that some of their families don't come from very good neighborhoods. Some of their families don't come from very good situations at all. Some of the families, they can't afford to even do the pajamas and stuff. So people do that for them. For me, it's more about I have one chance to get it right. I have one chance to make sure I don't screw up my kids. I've got one chance to make sure my kids see me being the type of person I want them to be. And so for us, it really is about how can we help. My wife, she's on 2 different PTOs, right? She is the treasurer of the PTO at my youngest son's school, and she just became the president of the PTO at the high school. I don't know how the hell she does that. And she's a full-time nurse, and she's a substitute nurse for the school district, and she puts up with my shit full time. Right? I have no idea how this woman does it. But it's just her way of giving back. She never wants to stop. So there's times where I'm like, okay, you're done. No more projects for a while, right? But then she has the same right to tell me, you've got to give up something because you're doing too much. We both tend to volunteer a lot. If somebody needs it, we find a way to do it, even if we don't want to do it. We say yes way more than we say no. If we say no, there's got to be a really, really good. I just don't want my kids to ever think that they're too busy to help, because we're never too busy unless there's something major.
Cool. Once again, good. Like there's a lot of times where I will talk to some of these dads, and we talk about all number of things, and then after it's over and done with, I'm like, yeah, I didn't really delve into like dad advice and dad experiences and things like that, and you're giving that for free, so I thank you, appreciate that. I'm not gonna have to worry about that one this time. I did have a couple of questions that kind of were meant to keep things kind of lighthearted. And one of them I only am asking because you brought this up in a roundabout way. We asked one of our guests this question, and he actually gave a really good answer that caught me off guard. So you said that your son, I think you said it was your youngest, is either going to be a serial killer or a superhero. Let's say he comes to you with the worst of the two options, and he says that I've been killing people for a while now,
Right.
and I'm having trouble finding places to hide the bodies. Where do you take that?
Right.
Do you go straight into let's hide the bodies? Do you go to, man, what's wrong with you? Or where do you take that question?
So it's rough. It's rough because you never want your kids to be in a bad spot, right? You feel like if your kid's ever in that downward spiral, then it's got to be your fault. So if you give me a room for plausible deniability, I'll take it. If you come to me and say, Dad, I need to borrow a shovel, or I need to dig a hole 6 foot by 3 foot by 6 foot deep, maybe it's a dog. I don't know, right? Plausible deniability. I never saw anything, but no, to be completely serious, I would hope that if my kid ever came to me with a problem like that, I could be dad first. And dad first is I have to protect him from putting himself in any worse spot. I have raised my kids to know that even when you get in trouble, you always get in more trouble by lying. So I want my kid to have the integrity, even in a bad situation. Dexter. If you are Dexter, Dexter told the truth a lot. Just nobody ever listened to him. I want my kid to be able to come to me and say, Dad, this is what I've done wrong. I idolized Ted Bundy when you told me not to. And now I've got this serious problem. What can we do? Well, you got to turn yourself in, but I'll stand by you, and I'll stand with you the entire time. And if it requires me to visit you daily in jail, I'll never give up on you. I will always love my kid, even if I don't like him. I have to protect the rest of my family from one. But that no matter what, he should know that he's got a mom and dad who loves him. He's got a brother and sister who love him. And the 4 of us will protect him as much as possible. We will not hide anything. Because the second I tell one lie, I'll tell 40. The second I commit one crime, I'll commit 40. The second I allow my child to be the worst of the worst, only because I am the worst of the worst. So that doesn't mean that bad kids can't come from good homes. That doesn't mean that good kids can't make mistakes, because all of that is very true in the real world. But in a real world sense, my integrity is just as important to me as I want my kids to be to them. So if he comes to me and says, I've committed these horrible acts, then it's my job as his dad to walk him through the jail doors and stand there with him. I'll be in the front row of every hearing. I'll be in the front row of the entire trial. I will stand in front of the press and tell them I love my child. But my child's life is not worth more than anybody else's, any other child's life. But if I got to commit a crime to go back to prison to help him out, I guess I'll have to. But I can't let him hurt people any more than I would want anybody to hurt him. Empathy is a great thing. If everybody practiced it and actually could take the time to put themselves in other people's shoes, we would never have a war. We would never have a fight. We would never have right versus left or red versus blue. We could really, if you can use empathy to see the world through somebody else's eyes, you'll learn how they need to see it. There's not enough of it. Maybe that should be a superpower. I don't think I'm quite there yet. And there's days where I teach my kids about empathy, and I'm driving down the street and somebody cuts me off, and I'll throw the middle finger and I will cuss and cuss and cuss. And my dad will go, or my son will go, Dad, maybe that person's in an emergency. Maybe they've got a very serious situation they've got to get home to. And my daughter will go, well, maybe he's got to poop, right? But if I was using empathy, maybe I wouldn't have ever reacted the way I reacted to begin with. And that's where I know I'm going right with my kids, because they're smarter than I am. They're able to point out. Now, maybe they're just needling Dad a little bit. They at least have the integrity to point out when I'm being wrong. Awesome to see firsthand.
There you go again, taking a silly question and turning it into great content. I dare you to do that. I dare you to do that with this next one. So this is something that I've started to ask most of the dads. If you're depending on the tone of the interview, sometimes I don't get to it. But with that being said, one of the things that I'm interested in just personally is the paranormal. And I was wondering if you yourself have any experience, any stories about aliens, ghosts, anything of that nature.
Okay, so I grew up in Atlanta, Georgia. I have lived in 42 different states. I have seen things that I could not explain. I've heard my name said in rooms where nobody else was in. I have been sound asleep. My wife is at work, and I swear I hear her say my name. So, paranormal, probably. Freaky, definitely. Scary, not a bit. I tell people I'm too dumb to die young. I'll fight a bear with a toothpick. I don't care. I'm not scared of anything. Have I had goosebumps raised because the bathroom water turned on? Yeah, this happened once or twice. Some of the houses that we've grown up in, I was 7 years old, sound asleep. My little brother, and I were sharing a room. This was in Lansing, Kansas. Sound asleep. It could have been more than 10 or 11 o'clock at night. Man, I just got smacked in the face, like hard. I woke up with a handprint. Had been asleep. We moved out of that house shortly after. Never knew anything about it. Never had any follow up. I don't remember anything else. So paranormal, there's, again, my kids experienced any of that? No. But they've also seen weird lights in the sky, and it was way before Elon Musk's satellites came out, right? Anybody could point at it now and go, that's a satellite. We've been in some weird places.
Wow.
What these 8, right? Yeah, we do a lot of this stuff, but
So you hit that from every angle.
that's
You
right.
had
That's right.
you have the ghost. You have real experiences. You saw what may or may not have been aliens. I mean, I don't I don't have anything even remotely approaching that from my own personal experience. So it's always good to get other people's their stories, and I almost said lives, but that's too general. So to determine, for myself, is this just a fantasy? Is this Bigfoot, or is there something here? Because I like to. I'm getting older. I'm 41 this year, and I like to believe that there's still a little bit of magic in the world. Even
Right.
even if it's coming from a ghost or an alien. Whatever the case may be, I like to pretend, if nothing else, that there's more to this world than we know. Even though we've been here and there's 8 billion of us at this point. I like to think that there's some kind of fantastical quality still to I guess show my son as he's getting older, so that he can keep that kind of I guess younger, more open mind that I struggle to keep myself at this old age. And
I'll
so
tell
yeah, that's
you.
cool that you got so much. What's that?
I'll tell you one of the things that um, I used to make fun of people because I'm not into cryptology. Like, I don't think we're ever going to find a Bigfoot. That doesn't say we won't, but because there's a lot of the country that we haven't set foot on yet, right? Um, but I've never seen anything remotely approaching that, and I've been all over the place. I've been in the Appalachian Mountains. I've been in the Rocky Mountains. I've never seen anything approaching. I've been in Alaska. Never saw any. I never saw a Yeti. Um, what does it hurt to believe in something? What does it
Right.
hurt? Uh, if you believe in Tinkerbell as being a real fairy, what does that hurt you to believe it? Same thing with religion. Same thing with stock market. What does it hurt you to have a little faith? If it makes you a better person and it gives you something to look forward to, if you are religious and go to church on Sundays and you are in a closet and pray with a guy wearing a little white lanyard around his neck, cool. That's your faith, man. If it makes you a better person, do it. If you believe in the flying spaghetti monster, great. If it makes you a better person, as long as it doesn't hurt anybody else, whether it's religion, whether it's your personal morals, whether it's I'm a Kansas City Chiefs fan. As long as it doesn't hurt anybody else, except for the Denver Broncos, go right ahead. Live your life.
It seems like you've caught some of my literature about the our savior, the flying spaghetti monster. If you're really
So,
interested in
so when I was
converting,
when I was in high school, that was one of the jokes that went around for a long time. Is we're going to create a religion about the flying spaghetti monster and the one-eyed, one-horned, flying purple people eaters, and it was when we sat down. I can't remember who it was. Some friends of mine, we'd played D&D growing up, and I remember we had sat down. We were going to come up with our own religion. Right? We were going to create our own cult. And as we were writing our own form of the Bible, you know that almost every Bible that has morals in it, they all come down to basically the same thing, and that is treat people well, right? That's if you break down the Ten Commandments, if you break down pretty much every religion from Buddhists to Judaism to Catholicism to Muslim, it's all the same thing. Just treat people well, man. And it's hard for me to admit that growing up, that I sucked at that part. I sucked at treating people well. Um, but now that I've got kids and a wife who allows me to be an idiot at everything else, I have to be good. I have to. Because the second I backslide on something little, I'll backslide into something big. So for me, if I'm going to be the father I want my kids to have around, if I'm going to be the type of adult I want my kids to be, I got to treat people better. Sometimes even if I don't like them. That's usually where the biggest challenges come from. It's trying to respect people that I don't find very respectful. But if I don't do it, all I'm doing is feeding into the problem. I'm just going to try to be right. I'm going to try to be as nice as I can to people, even if I don't like. One of the first rules of business, even the biggest jerk in the world is putting money on your light bill. Let them, right? Get them out the door. Just be nice as long as it takes to get them away from you. And you solve a lot of problems that way.
I mean, I was going to say this to the end, but you keep saying that you tell your sons and your daughter not to be like you, to be better than you. But I think that if they could grow up to be as wise and successful and self-aware as you are, then like they are ahead of the game for sure, because you've been one of those that took the bad things and you made them like work for you. You grew from them, and you are able to look back, and you can see it shows the growth, because you're able to look back and you have shame over what the way you used to be, and that just proves that you are a significantly better person now, maybe a complete 180. And I applaud that. Like, you are we will never be able to hang out probably because we're in Tennessee and you're in Kansas, I assume.
Yeah.
But I would be happy to hang out, and chill with you, because you are a really cool guy, and you are doing things for kids that that aren't yours, that are not your responsibility, and that despite that need that, and that get a lot from that, and that maybe would be on the path that you were when you were a kid if you were not doing that for them. So I'm gonna have to put you down for future dad of the week, man. I don't want to like embarrass you or nothing, because I feel like I get this sense that you're not like super great with compliments, but I I come across a dad every now and again in these interviews, and they're inspiring, and I'm gonna have to put you down for that award whenever we get back to actually having the time to give those out on the podcast. I'm gonna, we're gonna put you in and celebrate you that day, because you definitely deserve what little we're gonna give you, and much more.
I appreciate that, but it really, stories that made up my life growing up. I even after my youngest son was born, and I thought I had a really good grasp on life, and I thought that I was going back to college, and I'm thinking that I've made my life. I'm doing well. Um, uh, I had started seeing a therapist, and I thought, well, this is going to help, right? They diagnosed me with PTSD, and I'm like, well, I was never a soldier. I don't know what you're talking about. So I was able to kind of get the help I thought I needed. Um, and then one day I had a memory dump. I dumped all this crap onto my therapist's lap, and all of a sudden I felt great, right? I feel empowered. I've let it all go, right? Uh, and my therapist wrote his phone number down on the back of his card, gave it to me, says, "I want you to call me when you get home." And I said, "Why?" And he goes, "Because you're not doing well." I said, "What are you talking about? I feel great. I've told you everything, right? I have told you the worst of stuff." And he goes, "You're not doing well, and you're going to have a very rough night." He goes, "I want you to call me." And I said, "Whatever." I did not make it out to my truck before I decided to kill myself. And I was on my way home, and I decided I was going to wreck my truck into the side of a bridge embankment. Uh, and I got up to 95, and I'm thinking, this is it. And then I'm thinking, wait, I'm going to go home and I'll feed my kids dinner, right? I'll feed my kids dinner. I'll spend one last night with them, and then I'll do it. So my kids go to bed, my wife goes to bed, and I'm sitting on the couch, and I'm thinking, I've got to explain to them why I'm going to do this, because I'm going to do it. Um, and I took one of the bullets out of my gun, and I put it in my mouth. And I'm sucking on this so that I will know what it's going to taste like when I pull the trigger. And I wrote this suicide note. And I typed it out. It ended up being almost 4 pages. And at the very, very end, just as I'm getting ready, I put the bullet back in the gun. I put it in my mouth. I'm getting ready to pull the trigger. I've got tarp down on the couch because I'm thinking I'll keep the couch clean. Uh, my youngest son who is almost 2, starts crying. Almost 1 o'clock in the morning, starts crying. So I get up and I go running into the bedroom because I don't want him to wake up my wife, because the gunshot wasn't going to wake her up, right? No, the screaming kid is. And I pick up my son and start bawling. And I made it back out to the living room. I called my therapist and said, "You asshole, you were right. I'm not doing good." And he goes, "No." He goes, "The things that you told me tonight, it would take people decades of treatment to get over." And I said, I can't, I can't go through another night like this. He goes, "You won't have to." He goes, "Because you're holding the reason you're never going to struggle again." He's right. He was absolutely right. Now that doesn't work for everybody. It doesn't. There are people who struggle huge. There are trauma responses that people can never, ever, ever come to grips with. But I have scars on my heels from my stepdad, who made me stand in the corner on my tippy toes, and he put thumbtacks underneath my feet for hours, shit like that. For years that went on, right? And so for me, it's not about me being a good dad now. It's just about not being the men who I had in my life. I was never going to let my kids see that. That's where the 10-minute rule came from. That's where, you know, I grew up in Georgia. So, I spanked my kids, right? I say that. I think I've probably spanked each of them maybe 5 times in their entire life, because the rule was, my wife is brilliant. She said, "You can never spank them while you're angry." Dude, that was the smartest thing in the world, because and the other rule we had was you can never spank them more than they are years old. So, a 3-year-old, you're only going to spank them 3 times. You're not going to spank them 40. At some point in time, it stops being discipline and turns into corporal punishment is good and turns into abuse, right? So we had these rules, and I would always let my kids talk me down. So the rule, I have to calm down before I can spank you. So we're going to talk while I'm calming down, and you're going to explain to me why you did this. And then you're going to tell me how many times you think you should be spanked. And they always came up with a number way beyond what I was thinking. I'm thinking, you're going to get swatted on the butt twice, and they're thinking 15 times. And where are you coming up with these numbers, right? But man, these kids were able to they were kind of able to teach me how to be a dad. I didn't know how to be one. I'd never been one before. I didn't have one in my life to teach me how to be one. So while I'm raising my kids are raising me. And so to say I'm a good dad now, it's because I have good kids. It's because I have a good wife. It's because I have good friends around me. I cut out all of the bad. If you were toxic, I didn't want you around me. I have friends of mine who are doing life in prison. I have friends of mine who have struggled with drugs. Now, these are people who I care about, and I'll put money on your books, but you're not coming into my home, because I don't want my kids to be around you. I can't trust them not to have you rub off on them. So for me to be a good person is only because I have good people around me. Otherwise, I would be right back to doing the same.
We are coming down here toward the end. I don't want to take this straight into the final lap before Dan has a chance to get to anything else he wanted to ask, though. Are you got anything left on your list, Dan?
No, that about sums everything up.
You've given us some amazing content. It seems like every single thing I ask you, no matter how silly, you turn it into something that I'm going to grow from and learn from. But with that in mind, we do like to give the guests the last part of the podcast to promote or talk about anything that we didn't get to or that they have going on. Like I said before, I'm kind of going into this blind for the most part, beyond your name. So I don't know if you have a podcast yourself or anything beyond your businesses that you're promoting on the regular, but throw it at us if there is anything out there, or if you just wanted to touch on anything that we didn't talk about.
I first, I just want to say thank you. Like, this is the first interview I've done in a podcast setting. I've been interviewed from a couple of other platforms before, um, uh, but I other than Time Suck, I don't really know a lot about podcasts. I've had to
I
learn over
fucking
the last
love
year.
that one, man. I
Uh,
love
uh,
that.
I had a friend of mine introduce it to me last year, and I have binged every damn episode I can.
You look a
That
little bit like him, like a little. You resemble him just a little bit.
that's the best compliment I'm going to take away from this. Uh, and now that I have the name of yours, I'm going to binge all of your episodes also that are on Spotify.
Well, I
Um,
appreciate that. We're nowhere near as
Yeah.
good, but I do appreciate that.
I like it. I'm having fun. I will tell you that the biggest thing for me, I have so many people who I could reach out for, and so many things that I could be thankful for, kind of try to promote. Um, uh, the one thing I do want to talk about, and I actually have a friend of mine who's going to listen to this later on, I'm sure. I have a friend of mine, uh, more than a friend, he's a brother, um, that his daughter was killed by a drunk driver in February. Um, and it crushed him. And I was asked to do the eulogy, and it was tough, right? Uh, I didn't know how to get through that, but I had to for him. And so one of the things that we came up with that I it means so much more now than I thought it would, and it's kind of grown legs and grown into this own little uh, entity almost. Um, but one of the things that we come up with is it's so easy for people who are going through any kind of trauma, any kind of horrible experience. It's so easy to focus on all the things you're missing out on instead of just mark the boxes of the things that you've done. It's so easy to look at the death of a child and to look at they're never going to graduate high school, they're never going to get married, they're never going to have kids, they're never going to experience their first career, um, rather than go, they had a first love, they had a first dance, they had a first movie with mom and dad, um, maybe they got their first driving lesson. Uh, the things that you can check off will always outweigh the things that you can't. And so that's the one thing I would leave with you guys is just to take the time to focus on the things that you have got to do instead of the things that you'll never get done. Your list will be much more positive. Your day will be much, much better. Um, and you'll cherish positive memories instead of all the things that you could possibly miss out on. I didn't realize until I watched him struggle with that how important that was going to be for us and my own family. For us now, we're kind of in a spot where we can look at each other and go, man, I'm worried about my son doing pole vault instead of football. At least he's here, right? Um, my daughter who is almost 15, I'm teaching her how to drive. I can get her to use one foot instead of two, we might be able to get through it better. But at least I'm able to teach her how to drive. Watching the trial with the drunk driver, watching how all of this has played out, um, there has got to be a better way. There's got to be a better way to focus on the positive instead of the negative. And there's got to be a better way for us to treat the people who we care. And for me, it just came down to focusing on the things that they're here for and not the things I'll never get to do. It'd be really easy to focus on the bad. But for me, that's what I would leave you guys with. Focus on the things that you've gotten to check off and not the things you'll never get to.
Damn, man. Well, like, I'm not gonna hang up right now, but honestly, I might end the fucking podcast on that. Like, that might be the end. Like normally we're like, hey, we'll check you later, bye, or whatever. Like, I'm like, that's it. That's fucking good. Right on. More good stuff, bro. I wrote that down too. Like I said before, kind of like almost common sense stuff, but still, stuff you need to hear and before it really clicks with you. And thank you for sharing that amongst all this other stuff. We are at the end now, and I guess I really can't cut this out of the podcast. Maybe I can switch something around. But I was thinking about doing a cold open with that joke you told in the beginning. We'll do that sometimes just to change things up. But Dan, give us your goodness. Give us that dad joke.
All right. Why are elevator jokes the best?
Why?
Because they work on so many levels.
Oh, yes, they do. Don't they? Yes, they do.
Yes, they do.
So many levels. Good stuff. I love some dad jokes. I consistently, when I post reels, it's the dad jokes that get the most views. All I have to do is put dad joke in like the title or the hashtag. That's all that they care about. They don't care about any of the shark attack stuff or the advice. It's just like, oh, fucking dad jokes. Eat them up. Eat them up. Well, that brings us down, like I said, to the end. And I want to thank you again, Shiloh, man. And that's an awesome name, by the way. Your parents may have come up short, but they had a really cool name for you.
Oh, no. Hold on. I have 8 brothers. Okay. Their names, Michael, Kevin, Donnie, Arthur, right? Alan. No. Brian, Sean, and fucking Shiloh. Right? Okay. The second to the youngest has the only odd name. I hated it growing up. But none of those guys will make fun of my name now. I will tell them how wrong they are. They're making fun of it. Yeah. No, it's awesome. It was very weird growing up though, having the only unusual name. Depending on which parent you ask and what their alcohol level was that day, there's a different reason behind why I got it. One, it was from a song, and somebody else said it was from an old Indian Western, and one of the Indian chiefs' name was, and somebody said it was from the Bible, although it's spelled differently. So my parents are dyslexic too, I guess. I don't know. There's never been a real answer of where my name came from. I'm just glad that now I have it. But I was never going to let my kids have a name like that. Never. Bad enough.
Your next son's not going to be Sue?
No. Although I should have, because then he would played football, not done pole vault.
He would be a tough son of a gun, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
We do thank you, man. You've given us so much to ruminate on, to chew on. I love how I seem to learn something, grow wiser in some way from every dad we talked to. Dan picked a good one this time. Thanks so much for coming on short notice. I really do appreciate that as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was a shot in the dark on that one, and thank you for coming through and making some time for us.
Yeah, absolutely. I love what you guys are doing. I was very honored to be here. I didn't even realize that apparently I'm smarter than I thought I was. So I love being a part of it. If there's ever anything else you need, just reach out. I'm more than welcome to do it.
Right on,
awesome,
man.
Dude. The only thing better than me having a good time is when the guest has a good time. So I'm glad to hear that. I will add you on Facebook so that we can communicate as needed, as we choose to. And when I post these reels of this particular interview, I will tag you to let you know that they're there if you happen to miss them in my feed. And I will also let you know when the episode's going to drop, so you'll know to tell your wife or whoever you want to share it with.
Yeah,
or your friend that you mentioned.
Yeah.
And I will send you a message about this later on, if necessary. If you're on Instagram or TikTok, anything like that, I can add you there if you want. I don't really get too much different from Facebook, but some of the stuff is a little bit different because I try to post different stuff on all of the podcast social media, so to speak. But that being said, thank you again. Thank you so much. You've been just amazing.
Yes.
Thank you, Dan, for finding a good guest.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to do it for another episode of Your Two Dads. For Dan, well, I always say for Dan, but Dan, you can say goodbye yourself, man. I don't need to say goodbye for you every time.
Yeah.
This is Corey saying check you later.
I'm Dan and check you later.
Right on. What about you, man?
Absolutely. I'll see you guys again, or I guess check you later.
Check you later, bro.
Check you later.
I want you to know it's over.
Well, bye.
You smell that, Bill? Smells like someone died.